So today we have sort of a very different topic, a more modernized topic that sort of goes around unanswered, and we're going to jump into a few questions. I'm just going to give you up the questions right at the front so you know what to expect um, that will come through in this video. So if you've read the title is about heartbreak, and it felt that it was sort of needed for to understand the mechanics behind it. We're going to dive into why do we constantly have memories of the past and how to deal with that. What causes heartbreak? So we'll dive into the mechanics of it, because if you understand the mechanics of it, then you can sort of navigate through any type of experience, specifically not only this one, but any type of experience, because it all has the same similar structure. And how to never get your heart broken again. We will also dive into something like that, which will give you a sort of a powerful tool that you can use through this understanding, and how to deal with it if you're currently going through something like this. So, why do we have constant memories that sort of replay, right? Depending on how intense whatever situation you may have went through, depending on the depth of that experience. If you have not fully lived that experience, so in that moment when that experience of whatever that relationship might have been, you may have not fully embraced it for what it is. And when I say this, you need to sort of just look at it from a deeper perspective, because the experience itself, if you do not, in the current moment, when dealing with another individual, in that specific instance, every moment, if you don't live it fully, when I mean live it fully, I am talking about really wanting to experience the full depth and nature of the relationship without having any regrets or having any type of resistance to what is. So obviously not trying to control the outcome. That is very important. You want to be fully present, which is the first foundation that should be there in any type of relationship. And besides just being fully present in that moment, be willing also to experience it to its maximum depth that it may or it can go to. Now, if you do this, what tends to happen is you don't get the shoulda, coulda, would have, if only afterthoughts when the relationship ends. This is not something where you approach a relationship where, in modern terms, they call it playing the field. So you're not interested in that, but your interest is in fully experiencing in the moment every bit of it without any resistance. So what do I mean by without any resistance? If there is something that happens in a relationship, maybe something that where you get triggered by it, what is generally happening to the individual within is a great sense of maybe pushing away the feeling Maybe a feeling may be a bit uncomfortable. There may be a sense of being afraid, and this resistance is the cause of suffering. Now, it may not necessarily be that you have to act upon every little thing that arises within the system, but rather allowing what is there that is arising to arise from within yourself. So, how do you do that? How do you allow what is there to arise without resisting it? So, maybe you might feel a sense of anger that may come up, or you may feel a sense of uh, maybe sadness, or whatever the feeling is that you may not like. You feel into that energy within the system. You feel into it fully, and you can do it with your eyes closed, or you can do it with the eyes open, but just becoming aware of what is happening within yourself, and just willing to welcome and be open for the diving in of that feeling that's there. You want to fully feel that. You don't want to push it away, because if you push it away, what tends to happen is you will have another instance, maybe with not those specific type of people or person, and you may have a life situation or life event that may come up, and that same sort of event may take manifest in your life, and the same thing will come up again, and then you do the same thing of resisting the feeling again. So by doing this and really feeling into the nature of what is there, what actually happens in that sense is that you tend to transcend that feeling. You tend to transcend that limitation that you've put on yourself. You tend to transcend that resistance that is there. And the more less resistant that you become to what is every single moment, then what actually tends to happen is the amount of suffering that one goes through, the amount of mental activity after interaction also declines in that process. So it's very important that you make sure that not only in relationships, but in every aspect of your life, that whatever that present moment that you are experiencing, or whatever is arising or being triggered from external or internal events, you make sure that you fully dive into that. I'm using dive into that as a way to sort of explain to you as to plunge into that feeling, because there's something else that I like to link here while I'm mentioning this, how to deal with heartbreak. You see, because of that past memory or the hurt or whatever that's there, I have made a video prior to this one. It's called The Observer is the Observed by J.D. Krishnamurti. And what that is that you are feeling is not separate from you. So in other words, if you're presented with a situation where somebody is maybe very intimidating, and their intimidation creates a sense of maybe it may be some intensity that you're feeling from that person. It's not actually you feeling that person's energy or intensity, but rather you're feeling your own energy and your own intensity that is happening within yourself, But because the mind and the five senses are perceiving and giving you the illusion that things are coming from outside of yourself, what tends to happen in that sense is there's a sense of projection that this person or whatever individual is the cause of what is happening within yourself. And that is one of the biggest illusions that is presented. On a deeper level, I'll dive into this, but you can take this with a pinch of salt, that no one can actually break your heart. No one can actually cause you pain or conflict. What actually is that reason for the pain, conflict, or the heartbreak is because the human mechanism, if you look at it, what you're referring to as heartbreak is literally an image that you have created of another individual based on your own interpretation, your own conclusions, everything that you have gathered about the individual based on your observation. And you sort of, the mind can say, this is where this would be or where this would go, and this is what it is. So this whole entire image of the situation, which is actually a self-created image of this person, and when the reality or the actuality, we'll call it, doesn't match the image that you have created within you, when that image is sort of takes a shock, that identity that you have created of that other individual, now that identity becomes a bit shattered. And because you have created an attachment to that image you have created within yourself, it's not the attachment of you feeling of the person, it's the attachment of the image you created that's within yourself of the person outside. So that image, when it is distorted in some shape or form by that person's action, it conflicts. And because of the conflicting, there is a sense of hurt and there's a sense of pain. Because now the reality that you once had, this illusion that you was once living in, is now shattered into how many pieces, and then you feel the pain of resisting what the actuality is of what that person really is, not what your image that you have created about the person is. So we all create this false sense of an illusion about another person, but when that image gets completely shattered and it doesn't match, then we tend to suffer. So we resist that of what is. We resist that truth of the moment. And that is why there is the suffering, and that is what is the main cause of heartbreak or any bad situation, for instance, that one may go through, any type of relationship. And if you're able, and this is how you can sort of never get your heart broken to some extent. There's two ways about it. There's one way where a person goes through an enormous amount of relationships in their life, and they get to a point where constantly that image, that mechanism comes into their awareness. So they don't tend to give it too much of an importance. They don't tend to identify themselves with the image that they've created of the other person. So in other words, they're not attached to the outcome. Because a lot of people, when they enter into relationships, the first thing is the outcome of the relationship. Where is this relationship going? Is it worth investing time into it and resources and so forth? So when one is not so invested in the image that they have created of the other individual, then they can more or less enjoy the relationship and experience it fully for what it is. And even if it goes all the way down south, it doesn't really matter. So that is one way. The other way is when you are interacting with an individual, if you bring the necessary awareness to what the mind is actually doing with the relationship of that other individual, the image that the mind is creating, the narrative and the story that is being developed. You are like a movie director. Your mind is like a movie director. And, you are just observing all of this stuff. And because there's some form of emotion that is there, that is developed because of the thoughts, then comes that very strong sense of attachment that builds, and it builds upon layers and layers and layers. So when a heartbreak happens, those layers sort of get ripped apart. But if you're at the beginning stages of a relationship and you're able to sort of bring the necessary awareness of how this image of this individual is being gradually created, and understand that this is just a false narrative that may be created in the mind space or may be created by whatever means, don't give that too much of importance. It may seem to match to some extent the external reality, but even if a slight jolt to that image by that other person who you've created the image of in yourself gets a little shaken, then you will feel some kind of hurt. So spirituality, you must understand, it's not about avoiding life. It's not about avoiding experiences. It's about becoming more aware so that you live in a more conscious way. And by doing that, you are less prone to suffering. So you not only are less prone to suffering, you also will cause less suffering to other individuals around you as well. Now, this is one powerful, a lot of powerful things that I've mentioned here in this specific video, which you can apply and use in your day-to-day life, or you can use it whenever you come across new other individuals or whatever relationship you may encounter in your life. This can also be applied in the working environment as well. We tend to meet a lot of people and we develop that relationships, and if we have to leave that job, there's a bit of a saddening process that one goes through, and a bit of grief that they feel deep down within themselves. And this is simply just what has been explained here. It's just the mechanics of how the mechanism of this human being structure actually works. And if you bring the necessary awareness to this, then you can move through life in a much more convenient way for yourself, and you can get to your goals and you can achieve your objectives in life in a much more smoother way, and you will enjoy the process of life much better.